Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video we will discuss about Asperger's syndrome. So Asperger's syndrome was discovered in 1944 by Hans Asperger, a Viennese pediatrician, and he first described it as a personality disorder and referring it as a psychopathy in the childhood. But later in the 1980s, autistic psychopathy was recognized as a single disorder known as Asperger's syndrome, which was named after Hans Asperger. So, as you can see here on the screen, we have provided a picture that what are the basic topics that we will cover in this video. So, let's talk about. So, first of all, we'll talk about what is Asperger syndrome exactly. So, basically, we'll talk about it. The next we'll talk about what are the clinical features, that is what are the signs and symptoms of Asperger's syndrome. Next we'll talk about the etiologies, that what are the basic causes responsible for Asperger's syndrome. The next we'll talk about the diagnosis, that is what are the investigations that can be performed for Asperger's syndrome diagnosis. The next we'll talk about how Asperger's syndrome is different from autism. And lastly we'll talk about a very important, that is treatment. So at last we will talk about the various homeopathic medicines which has been successfully used for the treatment of Asperger's syndrome. So these are the basic topics that we will cover in this video. So let's start with first, what is Asperger's syndrome? So let's talk about it in elaborated manner, in order to make it understandable to you guys, what is Asperger's syndrome. So Asperger's syndrome belongs to a group of neurodevelopmental conditions which is known as autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Asperger's syndrome is characterized by a range of developmental disabilities, as I have said, and people with this kind of disorder have problems, lack of desire to interact with the peers, may have socially and emotionally inappropriate behavior, and generally have repetitive routine. It is also sometimes found that person affected by Asperger's syndrome has some speech and language peculiarities. So this is the exact meaning of Asperger's syndrome. Now next we'll talk about the clinical features, that what are the signs and symptoms of Asperger's syndrome. So some of the signs of Asperger's syndrome include, first, hyperfocus. Now what is hyperfocus? So many people develop an extreme focus on a narrow topic of interest. For children, it could be all-consuming interest in things like train schedules or dinosaurs. For example, this interest can fuel one-sided conversations with the peers and adult. So this is hyperfocus. Second symptom of Asperger's syndrome is trouble recognizing social cues. So people with Asperger's syndrome might remain unaware of attempts to change the topic of conversation. And topic of conversation, which can be one reason why they have difficulties with social interactions. They may also have difficulty knowing what to lower their voice in certain locations. Now third symptom, difficulty reading facial expressions or body language. Many autistic peoples have a hard time recognizing and understanding other people's feeling. They might find body language difficult to interpret, avoid making eye contact, speak in monotone, and display few facial expressions. And the last symptom of Asperger's syndrome is difficulty with motor skills and coordination. So some children with Asperger's may find essential motor skills like running or walking challenging. They might lack coordination and have trouble with climbing or riding a bike. So these are some signs of Asperger's syndrome that you can face. Next, we'll talk about what are the etiologies. That is, what are the basic causes that leads to this condition, so-called Asperger's syndrome. So let's talk about it. So, changes in the brains are responsible for Asperger's syndrome diagnosis, but doctors have not yet determined exactly what causes these changes. Some experts have identified a few potential factors that might contribute to the development of autism, including genetics and exposure to the environmental toxins such as chemicals or viruses. And boys are more likely to receive a diagnosis of ASD than girls. Now next, we'll talk about the investigations, that how is Asperger's syndrome diagnosed. So let's talk about the investigations now. So no single test can tell you whether you or your child is on the autism spectrum. So if you have noticed any signs of Asperger's, a mental health professional or specialist can help determine support need by assessing key areas, including language skill, social interactions, facial trust in interacting with others, attitude toward change, motor coordination, and motor skills. So people on the autism spectrum might originally receive a diagnosis of ADHD, that is attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, or other neurodevelopmental conditions. So if a diagnosis does not seem to fit, you always have the option of connecting with another specialist or healthcare professionals. So this is the only means of investigation for Asperger's syndrome. Now next, very important, that is, how is Asperger's syndrome different from autism? So the major difference that sets the Asperger apart from ASD is that people with Asperger's tend to show milder symptom of autism, and they have strong language skills without language delays. So this is a difference between Asperger's syndrome and autism. The next very important treatment. So now here we will talk about the homeopathic treatment. So now we will talk about the homeopathic medicines that has been successfully used for the treatment of Asperger's syndrome. So the first and the foremost medicine for the Asperger's syndrome treatment is Gingko Biloba. Let's talk about it. So Gingko Biloba, this is one of the best homeopathic remedy which is very effective to support brain health and maintain a healthy supply of the blood and nutrients to the brain. And second medicine for the Asperger's syndrome is Hyoscymus. This is another very effective homeopathic remedy. It is mostly indicated to reduce routine impulsive, restless and erratic behaviors. And third medicine for Asperger's syndrome is Hypericum perforatum. So Hypericum is one of the most recommended homeopathic medicine to maintain emotional balance, a reasonable attitude and feeling of well-being in children. And the last but not the least, we have next medicine, that is China. So this homeopathic medicine is very effective to reduce the frequency and the strength of common childhood tantrums, calm and soothe fiery tempers. So these are some basically used or commonly used homeopathic medicines which has been used for the treatment of Asperger's syndrome. So with this we are end here. So that's all for today. In this video, we have discussed about the Asperger's syndrome, that what are the causes, what are the signs and symptoms, what are the diagnoses, and what are the effective homeopathic medicines which has been successfully used for the treatment of Asperger's syndrome. So that's all for today. See you guys in our next video. Till then, stay connected with us for more videos like this. Don't forget to subscribe and comment below, and yes, press the bell icon for more updates. Stay safe and stay healthy, and yes, thanks for watching this video.